afternoon, everyone. We'll call to order the City of Murfreesboro Board of Zoning Appeals, a regular meeting for January 22nd, 2025. The first item on our agenda is a determination of a quorum, and with 4 members of a 5-member board here, we do have a quorum today. Next item is the public comment section. Has anyone reached out to staff to present any comments?
We have not had anyone reach out, Chair Young.
All right. Next is the consideration of the minutes from our regular meeting on December 19th, 2024. Those minutes were provided to the board members. Are there any changes necessary?
No, sir.
Have a motion to approve, I guess.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. You call the roll for us.
Mr. Batchelor?
Aye.
Mr. Tips?
Aye.
Vice Chair Halliburton?
Aye.
Chair Young?
Aye. All right, so those minutes will stand as written. Next item is old business. Under administrative appeal is application Z24024 by Sean R. Henry representing AutoZone. They are appealing a decision of the zoning administrator regarding whether a proposed use at 810 Northwest Broad Street constitutes distribution of automobile parts and components warehousing, transporting/distributing, which is not permitted in the commercial highway zone. I believe Mr. Newman or give us some more information, or city staff.
Yeah.
There's a desire to defer again.
Chair Young, yes, sir. On the screen in front of you and included in your packet was a letter from the applicant requesting to defer this until the February meeting. They are finishing up the special use permit that would satisfy the amendment that staff has been working on kind of in the course of this appeal. So they're just requesting you defer and expect to see that special use permit next month.
All right.
Make a motion, we defer until next month.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, if you'll call the roll for us.
Mr. Batchelor?
Aye.
Mr. Tips?
Aye.
Vice Chair Halliburton?
Aye.
Chair Young?
Aye. All right, so that's been deferred till next month. One item of new business, it's a special use permit request. Application Z25001 by Miss Amy Miles of PB2 Architecture and Engineering, representing O'Reilly Auto Parts. They are requesting a special use permit in order to establish an automobile parts retail hybrid retail hub in a commercial highway zone. This is for property located at 1050 Dr. Martin Luther King Boulevard, an approximately 29,232 square foot automobile parts hybrid retail hub located in Mercury Plaza. Mr. Donovan, I believe this is your application to review, please, sir.
Thank you, Chair Young. For those of you that have been on the board, this is going to sound very familiar to what we've been working with AutoZone on. This is the first automobile parts hybrid retail hub that we've had come through. Just because this is the first special use application for this use of its kind, I'm going to take a little time, give you a little background on the use just so that the board's familiar with it. Make sure you know what use you're reviewing. You should see on front of on the screen in front of you, this is the amendment, the zoning code amendment that has been approved by City Council. So what we're looking at today is an automobile parts retail hybrid retail hub. And what that's defined as is an establishment with greater than 10,000 square feet of gross floor area engaged primarily in the sale of automobile parts and related goods for personal use or consumption, which includes routine or routed deliveries from the establishment to a supported distribution and or a fulfillment component use. So there's going to be retail sales on site. There's also a larger area that you're going to see serving as a distribution or a fulfillment center. In the case of the application before you today, there's a little bit of distribution, but it's mainly fulfillment, which the difference between those distribution is replenishing stock at the same basically a company store. So to one O'Reilly's location, go into another's O'Reilly location. Fulfillment is providing parts to tire shops, your oil change, quick lube places, dealerships, things of that nature. So with any of these automobile parts, retail hybrid and retail hub uses, you're going to see a dual use. One of those uses is going to be retail, and then you may see either both the distribution and fulfillment or one or the other and still meet that definition. So we'll get into the specifics now of the case before us today. So this is a request by O'Reilly's Auto Parts to establish automobile retail hybrid hub in Mercury Plaza. This is exceeding the 10,000 square foot. For the building, it's actually 29,000 square foot, almost 30,000 square feet. So as far as the site, let me get down to the site plan that'll help a little bit. I'm going to start out large and we'll zoom in. So proposed hours of operations for this site will be Monday through Saturday, 7:30 to 10 p.m., and then Sunday from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. So you're seeing typical retail store type operations, although there will be associated distribution, which we'll get into a little more in the operations. So the applicant is proposing a build out of almost that 30,000 square feet in a larger shopping center of Mercury Plaza. The retail space is approximately 3,826 square feet, and that's the traditional retail operation with a almost 24,000 square foot warehousing component that is the part storage for that, either replenishing stock at other stores or for distribution to oil change facilities and dealerships. And then there are some support spaces included in that tenant build out, including restrooms and offices that are ancillary. So Mercury Plaza is actually located on a 4-lane in Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard and a 5-lane Middle Tennessee Boulevard. So there's plenty of transportation facility to serve the site. This isn't as if it's being served off of a local street. You can see Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard to the north, Page North, and then along the what would be the right-hand side of the page is Middle Tennessee Boulevard. So there's adequate transportation infrastructure to serve the site. The applicant isn't proposing any new utility connections or stormwater on site. This is an existing built-out site. Most of the improvements that are being made, or you're going to hear staff make a request, a recommendation for an improvement to be made on site, are very minor in nature and on existing developed portions of the property. The site plan also indicates a new dumpster location, which is behind the building, which would be in compliance with our design guidelines and zoning ordinance. We will need to look further at that enclosure. The site plan also designates 30 spaces there for employee delivery vehicles. This site, in discussions with O'Reilly's, is expected to have, at most about 21 vehicles, light duty, Nissan Frontier, or small vans that are doing those deliveries. So you're not seeing like a box truck operation or a semi-truck operation making those deliveries. It is a vehicle similar in scope to what you would expect to see going out of when Mercury Plaza was operating as a shopping center when it was originally built. However, those light-duty trucks and vans that are transporting the merchandise to nearby dealers and repair shops will also service 17 other O'Reilly stores within a 70-mile radius. The applicant has indicated that is on an as-needed basis. They're not there to provide a routine delivery to replenish stock. It's if they run low before the routine delivery for that store, they would make those kind of one-off deliveries to other O'Reilly stores. So that's not they're not routinely moving product between two stores is what they've indicated to us. Their deliveries do occur up to 4 times a day, and they provided a kind of a schedule of what they expect those to be. And those are staggered throughout the day. I think they're in about 3-hour intervals. Sorry, I'm just not seeing it. But those are starting in the morning hours and during that 7:30 to 10 p.m. operation time period. So also to help minimize traffic disruptions, the replenishment of this site is going to occur in the evenings or in the early AMs between midnight and 6 a.m. That's when a semi-truck will be on site to deliver parts to restock the shelves of the hub. And that'll occur 5 nights a week according to the applicant. So, which is typical of automotive parts retailers. They are providing a courtesy service area, and they've designated 3 parking stalls for that at the request of staff. Staff does have some concerns about the location of this. Typically for auto parts stores, retail stores, you see this occurring on like the sidewalk in the area right next to the building where it's kind of protected. The staff of the retailer isn't walking through the parking lot with equipment to either do those routine services of changing out batteries, headlights, and check pull codes from the vehicle. So they have a little bit of a protected space. Staff has a concern about this. This is a large shopping center. There's traffic within this parking area. You're going to see in the staff's conditions that we would like to see a protected space for this to occur, either protected by some bollards or curbing or in some manner to provide safety to both the customer and to the employees of the store. And I'll read that to you in the conditions when we get to that. So this use is also subject to our general standards of applicability. Staff has reviewed that. We feel that it complies with those general standards of applicability. I'm going to spend a little bit more time, since this is the first time the body's seen it, going through the individual standards for the specific automotive, retail, hybrid, and retail hub use. And so any site that requests approval must provide us a floor plan showing the distances between their racking, just so that we can kind of delineate spaces and what's occurring on site, which they have provided to us. And you should be able to see it on the screen in front of you. You have the approximately 4,000 square foot retail area here, and then the remainder is parts. Their parts storage that they're using for warehousing, or even some of the traditional parts storage you would just see associated with a typical size store, as well as you can see the restrooms, break rooms, and the floor plan as well. So they have provided us that. The tightest space between shelving and racking on the side is 3 feet. So we believe that they comply with that standard. The applicant must include information regarding the number of other locations that will be served by the warehouse or distribution use, the frequency of all distribution and fulfillment deliveries from the premises, and the time of day such deliveries will be made, as well as the number of vehicles, and then any additional information that the planning director requests. I've went through much of this. This is going to serve nearby shops and dealers, as well as their 17 stores in the 70-mile radius, 4 times a day, 9 a.m., 11 p.m., 1 p.m., and 3 p.m. Those are typically their scheduled times. They did tell us that they do modify from that, but this is taken during the bulk of the day when their commercial customers and the retail shops and dealers are operating their businesses. And as we discussed earlier, Nissan Frontiers minivans, on occasionally a small delivery van will be used, but not semi-trucks are not making these deliveries. The semi-trucks are restricted to those 5 times a week, and they're coming at those off hours between midnight and 6 a.m. And then the applicant must include a site plan that includes truck turning templates and loading dock layout and any outdoor storage, if any is demonstrated, to demonstrate compliance. So they did provide us that site plan. The blue markings that you're seeing on the site plan here are for a semi-truck, and then the red markings that you can also see are for the trash truck to be able to serve. They're adequately able to serve the rear of the building. They haven't indicated any outdoor storage on this site plan. You will notice in the conditions, though, staff has observed similar retail operations from O'Reilly's that have some totes and other items that are stored outside. We'll be adding a condition that those be stored behind the building out of the public view and screened as appropriate. And that'll be reflected in the conditions. And then the last one, which is where in this use BZA has some latitude, and there need to be some additional discussion by the BZA. The BZA may deny approval where the proposed automobile retail hybrid retail hub would have an adverse effect upon adjacent properties, the character of the neighborhood, traffic conditions, parking, utility facilities, or other matters affecting the public health, safety, general welfare, and or interfere with the development and use of adjacent properties, including the types and frequencies of anticipated deliveries to support the accessory use, the size and types of vehicles to be used for anticipated deliveries. Anticipated deliveries to support the use and the size and type. Support the accessory use and deliveries to support the accessory use, anticipated times for delivery and or anticipated delivery areas and routes. In the alternative, the BZA may condition approvals on the application modifying its site plan and conforming its delivery operation to ensure compatibility of the proposed location with adjoining properties and surrounding streets. So staff has reviewed this. We believe they do meet this. There are some recommendations you're going to see from staff in the conditions, such as providing the protected courtesy service area, either through bollards or curbing, and then the totes that would play into this. But this is an area where if there's something the BZA feels is having an adverse effect, either within the shopping center or on adjacent owners, it would be appropriate for the BZA to add conditions here as you see fit. So staff recommends approval of the special use permit because it meets the general standards of applicability and specific use standards for automobile retail, hybrid retail hub uses as noted above. If approved, staff recommends special use permit include the following conditions. 1, any outdoor storage shall be restricted to the rear of the building and screened according to the zoning ordinance and or design guidelines. The loading and unloading of any delivery vehicles, whether utilized for in-town or out-of-town delivery, shall be restricted to the rear of the building. A protected customer courtesy service area shall be provided. The protected service areas shall be separated from drive aisles and parking areas by the use of bollards, curbing, or landscaping, or a combination thereof. No repairs other than services customarily provided by O'Reilly's shall take place in the customer courtesy area, and no on-site repair shall be permitted outside of the customer courtesy area. And then item number 5, this is one of our typical ones, is BZA approvals does not imply approval of a site plan. A site plan shall be submitted for review and approval, subject to Murfreesboro zoning code and design guidelines for any improvements being made to the site, including but not limited to the dumpster enclosure, outdoor storage areas, and protected courtesy service area. and I will be happy to answer any questions that the board may have. And also, O'Reilly's has representation here if you have any questions of them as well.
All right, thank you very much. Any questions for Mr. Donovan?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
When was this ordinance made effective?
Give me one moment. And so this past second reading, December 5th, it would have become effective 15 days after, which would have been December 20th.
Okay, so essentially this is exactly like the prior application that the administrators rejected, right?
Yes, this is actually what become of that request, and John, jump in if you feel like you need to. This is what staff had been working with the prior applicant on, coming to a resolution, and this is where staff ultimately landed, and working with them and city administration to get the zoning amendment update.
Okay.
Yes, if I may jump in briefly. As you may recall, with the AutoZone application, the ultimate determination by the planning director was under our zoning ordinance as it was previously drafted, that use would have to be only in the industrial zones, and there was no way to allow this kind of hybrid retail distribution in the commercial highway zones. However, we did recognize between discussions with multiple levels of city leadership, with city council members, and with this body, that was a use that we want to allow in the city if there was a way to do it in a responsible way. And so this ordinance, which I drafted with substantial help from the planners, was our attempt to provide that responsible process. And so the idea was to permit this use through the special use permit process to make sure that there's, the city is being responsible about where these uses can be located and the way that they're implemented so that it minimizes the effect on the neighborhood around it. So while the prior application was ultimately was rejected by the plan director, that was because of the way the ordinance was drafted. And this amendment was an attempt to allow that use as well as this current application, or uses like this current applications, to go forward if they can comply with the guidelines.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Another question I had was, there's a concern, as you said, where the courtesy parking is, and the distance between that and the sidewalk and the building itself is a thoroughfare throughout the parking area. Is there any thought to, not only having the crosswalk in there, is there any thought to having more or less speed bumps and distances along that area to keep people from coming across that, approaching that courtesy area too fast?
Yeah, and kind of what staff's thought process before it was, not necessarily for speed bumps in the drive aisles, but either bollards. Let me zoom in on it, and so kind of what we expect and had discussions with Ms. Miles about was providing those 3 spots, one right next to another, and then the area in front of it being protected by bollards or curbing, and that way they had a place for, most of the time they roll out a cart that has the charger they're using or whatever equipment they're using, and it would be able to sit there in the protected area. That would provide a buffer between them and the traffic within the development. Speed bumps weren't considered, but that would be something I think that would be in the board's discretion for additional conditions.
Well, I just think because, human nature around our area in particular, I guess, and in general, a lot of people don't pay attention to crosswalks. And one way that we don't like speed bumps or those other things that they may be called, but they will make you slow down. And I think that's makes more protection for the employees that are coming to and from the building out to that courtesy area.
I think an example of that would be where, well, shoot. It would be like the development that's at the corner of Medical Center Parkway and Thompson Lane, that shopping area. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when you're coming out of not every one of them, but most every retail shop, the crosswalk is raised, and so you literally gotta slow down before you even cross, and it makes you think, I gotta slow down irrespective of whether somebody's coming across it or not.
Yeah.
And it makes you think. Let's put it that way. Makes me think.
Yeah.
It seems this ordinance came and is targeting the auto parts, where there's other uses, like a grocery store, for instance, that delivers. Electronic stores have this place to store and go deliver it. Is more just kind of my own education, why these require the special
Right.
ordinance versus others.
And we did have multiple discussions about how broad to make the ordinance, because obviously there are other industries where one could imagine a similar use coming into being. The concern, though, was we didn't want to be too over-inclusive, because particularly for smaller businesses, the special use permit process can be somewhat onerous at times, or at least time-consuming. And so we didn't want to be too overly inclusive and, imagine a small store that sells things on eBay, for example. Depending on how we defined fulfillment, that could be a fulfillment center. But if they also sell at the counter, then it would be a retail hybrid and fulfillment. Well, that was the reason why we had both the 10,000 square foot minimum as well as limiting it to auto parts, is because we know that in the auto parts industry, this particular use is I don't know if it's fair to say in vogue, but certainly multiple retailers are moving to this model. And it makes a lot of sense. When you have a lot of retail stores and you want to be able to compete with Amazon with their same-day delivery at times, you want to be able to tell your customer, yes, we have your product in stock, but you can't have all of your products in stock in every store. And distribution centers are expensive, and so you have mini distribution centers, essentially, which is what some of these uses are. Now, this particular location, it's not distribution, it's more fulfillment, but it's a similar idea, as being able to have a store with much more stock than your standard store, so you can direct your customers to here if they have a more esoteric need. So we're seeing this in the auto parts industry right now, which was the reason why we tailored it to that industry. And we didn't want to necessarily be overly inclusive and require every Kroger that has a delivery program to have to go through a special use permit process necessarily. But we are certainly aware that everyone's trying to compete with Amazon, and we may well see other industries move into this model, in which case we probably will see other amendments to the ordinance along similar lines to this potentially in the future. But at the moment, we wanted to be more conservative in our approach and not be too overly inclusive and require all these other unintended uses to have to come through the special use permit process.
So the special use permit process was triggered when it went over 10,000 square feet.
Correct.
If it was
So-
9,900 square feet and they could do the same process.
Right.
It would not require.
Right.
Just getting-
If O'Reilly's wants to build another normal size retail store, and most of these auto parts stores are, I think, in the neighborhood of 5 to 7,000 square feet. We don't necessarily want them to have to go through the whole special use permit process for another standard store. But for this is a new use, which it's different from their standard model, or at least historically. I don't know if O'Reilly's, but I know some retailers already do this in their standard size stores. But the impact on their neighbors is necessarily more limited when you only have 5,000 square feet. When you have 30,000, there's a lot more potential for deliveries going constantly in and out at all hours of the day and night, which was our concern, was being able to limit it and make sure that they have a site plan that allows them to make those deliveries safely. So that was the ultimate conclusion of staff. But certainly this is a new thing that we're trying out, this new use, and it may require tweaking going forward if
Okay.
necessary. But
Well, that makes a lot of sense. Appreciate the clarity.
absolutely.
Any further questions for staff at this point?
I don't have, this is purely a comment. I just really appreciate the staff, and everybody working together. These are two different spots in Murfreesboro that are, in my view, I think this is going to be kind of a facelift to both facilities, and I just really appreciate the city working, in essence, with AutoZone to get it so that O'Reilly's can do a similar thing. So I really appreciate that.
All right, Ms. Miles, anything, or the applicant, anything you'd like to add to the application? Feel free to come to the podium and provide us any comments you may have.
Hi, I'm Sydney. I'm actually with O'Reilly. I'm just here for any questions you may have. In all honesty, we really appreciate you guys having us here and changing these ordinance so that we can have, our hub store here. I think the only clarification I do want to provide is we will not have carts of parts. Everything will be handheld. So if you had any worries about additional carts helping customers, that is not something that we are doing. It will all be handheld monitors that kind of plug into the vehicle for any sensors that may pop up, and then we will do windshield wipers, bulbs, and then carry batteries out. So that's some clarification. But we're good with all of the trash closure. If you want us to have additional spots and bollards, we are perfectly fine with adding that. So
All right, thank you.
that's all I have to add. Thank you.
All right, at this time, we'll conduct a public hearing. If there's anyone present wishing to speak for or against this application, if you'd come forward and give us your name and address, and feel free to provide us any comments you may have.
Yes. W.J. Freeze. I live at 830 Bradwell Pike, which is right behind Rose's. And I'd recommend that y'all vote for this. Our area over there certainly is blighted since Kroger's closed. Drugstore's closed. We need some help over there. And I think this would be a good thing because everybody has to have car parts. And this O'Reilly's right down here, they run about 10 vans out of that one right down there. So that might take some of the traffic off of this one here. I don't know if they got a plan for that. Is that going to happen? It should help. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else have any comments? If not, we'll close the public hearing and then open the floor for any further discussion or a motion.
Tim,
Question
did you-
before we do
Go ahead.
that. Could we ask the applicant, with that statement that was made, are there plans to close that other store?
No, sir.
Okay.
It's just to help alleviate.
You might come to the podium so we can.
Yeah,
you
we
might
need
come to
that on the
podium so we can
record.
catch it.
Sorry.
Sorry about that.
This is just strictly to just help alleviate, as previously stated, our stores can only hold so much product. More and more cars are being manufactured every day, so we can't keep producing distribution centers. So the thought behind this is if we have these larger hubs, they can hold more inventory in terms of variety, not necessarily quantity, so that way we can service more vehicles in the area. So this should also help with local stores in terms of them not having to constantly have to replenish so frequently, because this store will be able to aid as well. And any consumer within the area is allowed to go to the hub too, because it is 100% operating as a retail space. So anything that's in there is for sale, and you guys are more than welcome to go in and purchase it, or you can, get it from your local store. So it's just meant to kind of give you more opportunity in terms of receiving your part quicker.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to approve this application with the conditions that were outlined by the staff. I feel like it complies with the 5 general standards to this. The only addition to those standards that I would like to add, or those conditions, the 5 conditions, I'd also like to add the need for either speed bumps or a raised a crosswalk between the sidewalk of the building and that courtesy area to promote more safety to those that would be ingressing and egressing on that.
I agree and would second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? I guess is that condition that added, that makes sense for,
Yeah,
of
if,
you.
I believe I understand Mr. Tipp's condition. He wants a speed control device to protect the crosswalk area.
Okay.
Yes.
Any further discussion? All right, if not, if you call the roll for us.
Mr. Batchelor?
Aye.
Mr. Tips?
Aye.
Vice Chair Halliburton?
Aye.
Chair Young?
Aye. All right, that application's been approved. Appreciate everyone's time and comments there. Next, we'll move to staff reports and other business.
I don't have anything for you, Chair Young.
All right. With that, we will adjourn.